Thank you for the invitation to participate in the International Conference of Interdisciplinary Humanities and Communication Studies. My presentation is entitled The Online Picasso Project, Multilingual and Multidisciplinary Digital Humanities. So Pablo Picasso was a prolific artist. What is even more amazing is the range of media he used. He produced 50,000 works of art, including almost 2,000 paintings, over 1,000 sculptures or 2,000 ceramics, over 18,000 engravings, 6,000 lithographs, and approximately 12,000 drawings. He also wrote poetry and plays. So we can say then that Picasso was fundamentally a multidisciplinary artist. The purpose of the Online Picasso Project, which now catalogs over 37,000 items, is to examine Picasso's career in all its multidisciplinary richness. So the Picasso Project is a platform, as you can see, and it's available online to anybody that gets a username and password. The Picasso Project is basically consists of a complex system of applications connected with an extensive database that includes both text and images pertaining to Pablo Picasso. It has been used in universities in the United States and Europe. Here, for example, is the Picasso Project being used at the University of Düsseldorf in Germany. The Picasso Project has been used both face-to-face with face-to-face instructions, but also long distance. So here, for example, you can see me teaching with the Online Picasso Project with the students there. But I have also used it to teach it long distance. So in this case, I am using the Picasso Project, but the students are at a different location. So let's look at the contents of the Picasso Project. It has 6 major components. It has biographical information. It has information about the artworks that he produced, the writings that he did, and also information about collections, and of course, references and archives. I will go over these different components in my presentation. So let's start with the biography. So the biography, of course, Picasso had lived a very extensive life. He lived over 90 years. And so we divided into a chronology like this. So you can click on any of the years of his life, and you can read about what he was doing. We also have a search engine that you can search for individual items. You can look for people that he dealt with, writers, other artists. You can look for any particular work that he produced, and so on and so forth. So, for example, if I look for Kahnweiler, who was one of the dealers that he dealt with, and now look at the range of 1911 to 1912, then I would get this output on the Picasso Project. So it's basically the Picasso Project is used depending on the needs of the user. So if I just click on the year like this, then I see all kinds of information. I have the biographical information, but you see links to individuals, Cocteau, the writer, also the locations where Picasso was moving at the time. They're highlighted in red, in dark red. I see documents, for example, that are available for consultation. You see the artworks that he was producing, and so on and so forth. So they have hyperlinks on the margin that indicates that there is material available of that nature. So, for example, there are documents for July. There are commentaries that you can read for July 2nd. Of course, there are items on July 1st that you can look at. And in this case, in 1938, Picasso was also writing, so you can actually read his poems. Because it's so extensive, the Picasso Project is so extensive, we've divided the years in 4 quarters. So each of the years, you can go to first, second, or third, or fourth quarter. And this is an example of the location. Now, we're right now in this section of the biography, but from here, you can also go immediately to check on the artworks. The artworks will be available both in a display format and a summary format. And I will explain that in a second when we get to the artworks. And of course, we have hyperlinks to the works throughout the project, so you can click on it and see it. And in some cases, we have a little thumbnail that indicates that there are images of documents available. So here, for example, is a document. When you click on it, you see a little bit more information on it, and you can zoom on it and read the contents of the document. So going back to 1938, you can scroll down and you see the information. So you can see here that the cities that are highlighted in dark red are movements that Picasso moved from Paris to Montjean and so on and so forth. So it indicates how he's moving in this period. And again, you can click on the work. So this would be, once you click on it, you get more information on that particular work. So here you can see the title, where it was painted, the medium that he used, the collection that it is in, and then of course you can zoom in on the images. We have high resolution images of a lot of the artworks available on the Picasso project. You can also read a little bit more about where Picasso was living at the time. So for example, these are one of the photographs that we have available for 1938, where he was living in Paris. And you can zoom on it and see the image of the residence of Picasso in Paris. And we also have a number of maps that it allows you to see Picasso in relationship to other artists. For example, in 1938, who was living around Picasso, how he interacted with those artists. And this is information that is very, very useful when examining an artist's career. So going back to 1938, like I said, in some cases, Picasso was also writing. So here you can click on the poem and you can actually read the poem in the original French version. And you can see the manuscript on the right-hand side. Okay. So going back to the biography, in addition to just going year by year, we also have, Picasso had such an extensive life, we have a subdivision of his life into what we call periods. So this is what the overview allows you to do. So everybody knows about the blue period, the rose period of Picasso, Cubist period. So you can go to any specific period and just see his outcome, his output in that particular time frame. We have also divided his career into themes. Picasso dealt with particular themes throughout his life, death, for example, being one of them, war, and so on and so forth. We also have particular colors that he used, or mythological characters like the Minotaur. Everybody knows about Picasso and the Minotaur. So you can see how his treatment of the Minotaur. So if you click on that, you see all of the images of the Minotaur that he used throughout his life. Or you can look at the treatment of death in his life, and you can see how he dealt with it throughout the years that he painted. We also have, it's important to look at Picasso in the context of other artists. So what artists influenced Picasso, or what artists did he influence? And so we look at Picasso, artists throughout history from the very beginning of time. And so, for example, if I hit on Edgar Degas, then I see works of Degas that might have been related to works by Picasso. And if you click on the particular work, then you see the relationship between the output of Degas and Picasso. You can see the relationship between the two. So the last thing is a calendar. We have for the biography a calendar. So a calendar is generated on the fly, so you can see where there are items in Picasso's life that might be relevant, and they're highlighted in red. So you can go to a specific season, month, day of the month, and if you click on it, then you see what Picasso was doing at a particular date. So for example, May 10th, we see what Picasso was doing, who he was dealing with his friends Paul Éluard and Roland Penrose. You can see what he was painting, and so on and so forth. So that allows you to see in detail. Now, going to the artworks is the most probably the richest part of the project, because we have 37,000 items, and we have a very, very complex search engine for it. So again, you can click on any particular year and you see the display of artworks for that year. You can also look at it in summary form. In that summary form, you have a little bit more detail about the titles of the works, where exactly they were painted, the medium that was used, the size, the location of the work, and so on and so forth. So if you click on a particular work like this, you can even more detail. So that's the title and so on and so forth. But in addition, you can see listing of books and exhibitions where this work could be found. And in particular, also the collection. So if you click on the collection, you can see it's hyperlinked in red. Then you see other works that are also in that collection. So this is very useful if you go into the National Gallery in Washington, then you get to see other works that Picasso that are available at that museum. So going back to the work, we see on the a top selection for each of the works. Then you can look at details, you can look at notes, commentary, exhibitions, and so forth. So for example, if I go to the notes, see notes that are available at the museum at the National Gallery with in relation to this work. Then you can see commentaries about the work. You can see the exhibition history of the work, where the painting has been exhibited throughout its life, and also what books it has been featured in. And finally, the provenance information, which is very useful. So for example, who has owned this painting? So this has been, for example, in the collection of the Weber. So if you click on that, then you see other artworks that were in that same collection. This is, again, very, very useful if you're examining the life of a particular artwork. And like I said earlier, you have a listing. I have links to books where this work is referenced and exhibitions. So you can click here and you can go back and forth. So for example, if I click on the ECO2, then I go to Elizabeth Cowling's book, and then I can see other works that are also listed in that book by Picasso. Okay. So going to this, you can see that we have works that we can compare Picasso to other artists. So for example, if I click on this work of Olga, his wife, I can see the relationship between him, his work, and work by Raphael. And we can also compare Picasso to Picasso. This is very important because he has such an extensive career that sometimes he kind of basically, he references the same theme, but in a different manner. So in this case in particular is 1923, and he deals with the Harlequin figure. And you can see different approaches to that same figure. And this is, again, very, very useful. Finally, for the artworks, we have a concordance between the cataloging of the Picasso project and many other known catalogs like Zervos and so on and so forth. So you can see that there are gaps, that we have items that they don't have in their catalogs. So we're constantly increasing the items that we have. All the other catalogs that are published already in paper, they're basically frozen in time, but we continue to increase our inventory of items. And this is the search engine. So it's a very, very extremely sophisticated search engine. So I can look for very specific information. So for example, I can look at a particular Zervos in a particular catalog, the Z catalog. I can look for a title, pharmacies, and I can say I just want to see paintings with that of that title, and I can arrange it in a particular order. So here I have found 2 works that represent a woman sitting and that are included in the Zervos catalog, and I listed them chronologically from 1901 to 1902. So again, it's very, very useful. And then once I have these, I can compare the two. I can do a comparative analysis between the 2 Picassos or Picasso and other artists. And again, in the chronology, we also have a calendar that you can go to specific date in the year and examine what Picasso was doing, was doing at the particular date. Moving on to the writings, like I said, Picasso was also a writer. So we have the comprehensive production of his poetry. So we have everything that he wrote. So you can go to a particular year, for example, 1935, and you can see the poems that Picasso wrote in that year. You click on the particular poem, then you see the original. In this case, he wrote it in Spanish, and you can see the manuscript. For any of the poems, we have also a translation in English. So you can read the original or you can read it in English translation. We also have a concordance. So we have a listing of all the words that Picasso used. We try to examine, Picasso was bilingual, what words he used in Spanish, what words he used in French, and we're trying to basically understand his linguistic world, what he was talking about. And we try to compare that world or that semantic sphere with what he was painting. And it's an interesting thing to have a writer who also is a painter. So we can compare and contrast the 2 outcomes. And here, so we have all the words in Spanish and French. So you can click on any of the letters. So B, for example, this is a list of the words in Spanish that he used. If you click on any of the words, then you go to the number of times that that word was used, and then you can go to the poem and find the context in which that word occurred. And again, you see the poem there. We have also put these words into categories, into semantic categories, but again, we're trying to understand what the concepts that Picasso was using. So all of the words that Picasso used in French and Spanish have been combined into concepts, and in order to try and understand exactly what Picasso was writing about when he wrote his poetry. And we've done all kinds of analysis, and it has been presented at different conferences, trying to understand exactly what Picasso was writing in Spanish, in French, and in general, and how that compares to his production in the visual arts. Finally, moving on to the collections. The collections is basically where all of these works, the 37,000 items that we have, are located currently. So we also have the where they were located at some point. Okay, so this is the current location. So for example, if I look at the Metropolitan Museum, then I see other works by Picasso that we have in the Picasso project that are currently at the Metropolitan Museum in New York. Okay, so we have also a listing of places to find, so I can go. We also have what we call former collections. So these are people that have owned a Picasso at some point, and so you can track down other items that they had in the collections. For example, André Level, he had this particular work by Picasso, and so you can see if he had it. In this case, he only had this one, and you see a listing of other collectors of Picasso. And this is very important for the provenance of the work, which is used all the time by auction houses and museums to locate the history of an artwork. And moving on to references, we have a very extensive bibliography. This bibliography is also related to the works that we have listed. So in many cases, you can see links, hyperlinks. So for example, the first one there that you see listed, you have a number of catalog there. If you click on it, then you see works that are illustrated in that book. In some cases, you can read the article online. We have actually the article available, and sometimes we even have the book available that you can read actually on the Picasso project. So, for example, if I look for a particular author, going again to Kahnweiler, his dealer, he also wrote books. You see works that we have by this author. And in some cases, for example, you can see there that The Rise of Cubism, one of his books, is available to read online at the Picasso project. Or we have a link to, so you can see some of the works that are illustrated in his book, for example, Der Weg zum Kubismus. And we also have catalogs of exhibition catalogs. So you can look for any specific exhibition catalogs. So for example, if you look for 1902 in the exhibitions, then we have 3 catalogs of Picasso that are available. There you can see what works were exhibited in that particular exhibition. So in this case, for example, we see this work that was exhibited. Finally, the last section of the Picasso project is the archives. The archives basically allows you to see how Picasso is relevant in the 21st century. Also, we have articles from the 20th century, from 1930. But the most important part of the archives is to see how is Picasso, what's happening about Picasso currently, what exhibitions are running right now, what books are being published about Picasso, what items have been discovered, what items have been lost, and so on and so forth. So it's basically how is Picasso being dealt with in the 21st century. So, if, we have a listing of articles in different languages: Spanish, German, English, French, Italian, and so on and so forth. And you can read the article online. And you can do searches on articles. So for example, I can see something that has the title of Picasso and also has Barcelona in the content, and is published in El País in Spanish. So I found 3 articles, and so that's very useful. Now, what I've been showing is basically the outside of the Picasso project. Of course, underneath there are all kinds of very, very complex programming that engineers have been working on the Picasso project for 25 years. And so everything that we see on the surface, of course, underneath is a very complex programming language and is written in PHP, which is the program that we use for that. We also have an authoring portal that allows us to enter all of the data. So this is basically the authoring portal that I can enter information about the artworks, biographical information. We also have platforms that allow us to input images, photographs, maps, of course, images of the artworks and so on and so forth. So this is constantly being updated on the Picasso program almost on a daily basis. We have, and so that's another beneficial thing about the Picasso project, that it can be updated all the time. So whenever information changes, we constantly update our information. We're able to do this thanks to the collaboration of many institutions, museums, and art galleries, universities, and so on and so forth. So we have, of course, worked with many of the major museums that are listed there. So, for example, the Museo Picasso in Paris, the Museo Picasso in Barcelona, the museum in Malaga, and so on and so forth. Also universities throughout the world. Actually, we've worked with many universities in the United States, universities in Europe, and university elsewhere. So we have this kind of interdisciplinary approach to the Picasso project because Picasso was a multidisciplinary artist. But we have seen that there are benefits to taking this kind of a multidisciplinary approach. So as Rebecca Glebe has recently pointed out, multidisciplinary method leads to a very holistic understanding of the world, which is what we want for our students. So it has a beneficial multiple perspective. It enhances collaboration skills, and it has a more realistic approach to life. So the holistic understanding, rather than looking at individual areas separately, a multidisciplinary approach integrates parts of each other into a more holistic view. So the fact that Picasso was multidisciplinary allows us to see the interconnections between different disciplines, and that's been very beneficial. Multiple perspectives, the fact that you can look at things from different angles, as Picasso did, also makes you a more well-rounded person. Working in one area sometimes allows you to solve problems in another area, and that's what Picasso did. He sometimes worked out a problem for sculpture while he was working on a painting. And sometimes he thought out some things when he was writing poems that then he applied to his paintings in the 1930s. So this multi-perspective is very, very beneficial, and Picasso was an example of that. Collaboration skills, this multidisciplinary allows you to collaborate with people in different disciplines. It's very well known that Picasso worked with people, with poets, for example. He worked with sculptors. He worked with people in ceramics. So his ability to work with different people, his ability to collaborate, allowed him to be a multidisciplinary artist. He learned all the time from these methods, and sometimes he improved on them. It provides a more realistic world approach because, after all, we have to work with people in different disciplines. We don't live in isolation. So being able to collaborate with people across the spectrum is a component of human interaction within social networks. So multidisciplinarity is very beneficial to a realistic way of life. So for our students, what we see is that the multidisciplinary approach allows us to transfer a lot of these skills to their view of life, to how they handle things. So it allows them to have more critical thinking. It improves their self-management. It improves their adaptability. So different subjects may be viewed from different ways, of different angles, with a different lens. It improves their analysis and problem solving because they can do things from different perspective, and it can apply to different particular circumstances. It improves their communication and literacy skills. It also allows them to have the ability to apply the information technology to what they're doing. They become more flexible, the ability to adapt to different contexts in the environment, and so on and so forth. So being multidisciplinary allows for that. And then one begins to consolidate learning by combining ideas from many different perspectives. So it allows a certain synthesis of ideas. So all around, the multidisciplinary approach is beneficial to our students. And so the fact that the Picasso project is multidisciplinary, and that we have used an artist like Pablo Picasso being a multidisciplinary artist, is the perfect way to approach art. So with that, I will conclude my presentation. I thank you for the invitation and thank you for your attention. Thank you.